Everybody, welcome to the channel. If you're a new viewer here, please hit that like and subscribe and hit the bell. If you're a repeat viewer, I welcome you back and would say the same because I know most of you who are watching my videos aren't subscribed. Anyway, to the point of this video, let's take out the Working Title G1000 NXi for a test spin. We're currently on the third release of it. They've done a bang-up job so far on it. I played a little bit with the first release, didn't really touch the second. Now I'm on the third, and VNAV actually is enabled now. So we're going to test that feature specifically in this bird to see what VNAV can do and if it works properly. So let's head to the cockpit, shall we?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the cockpit. So we're going to get ourselves set up for our flight here. I said in the intro, we're going to be running the Working Title G1000 NXi. This is the third version. I think it's their 0.3 version, or however they've got it numbered. I can't remember exactly. So we're going to be putting it through its paces. We've been doing a relatively short flight from Charlie Yankee Tango Romeo, that's CFB Trenton. This is a military base. We wouldn't be able to land and take off here in real life because it's restricted to military Air Force aircraft. And we're going to be going to my hometown of Charlie Yankee Golf Kilo, Kingston, Ontario. So it's a fairly short flight. We're going to be going up to about 4,500 feet, and I want to test the new RNAV feature in the Working Title G1000 NXi. I played with it. I've had it work. I've had it do weird things. So I've only used this current version once so far. Excuse me. So we'll see how it goes. So an immediate bug with it that I've noticed, or something that just hasn't been fixed yet, is that if you pop out the windows, even though the plane is cold and dark, you can see the two windows are popped out and they show them as active. And like anything I interact with here, actually interacts with it just as if it was powered on. So that's a problem with it that they do need to fix, but it's fairly minor. I mean, this is still early access, so you can't fault them for it. So anyway, let's get this bird in the air. Going to power on. Open the mixture, brakes are on, everything, beacon light, turn on the fuel pump. Check out that my fuel flow is good. It is. Turn off my pump. Clean my mixture. Throttle in what would be approximately 1/4 inch. And let's crank it over. There we go. We have a start. Get 1,000 RPMs. We're not even going to do any ATC or anything today. We're just going to fly. Taxi and nav lights. So we should all be good to go here. All right, release the parking brake. Nav light, taxi lights on. Not paying too much attention to any kind of rules here. We're just going. And if you're paying attention to my little nav map on the side, you'll see the taxiways don't match up here whatsoever. I don't know if the stock data in the game has been fixed or not, but if you used to try to land on ILS 24 here, it would actually bring you down onto the taxiway instead. Navigraph data fixes that, but I'm not sure about stock data. So we're going to go up to 4,500 feet. Turn on nav here, rest of my lights on, transponder to altitude mode, and let's let her rip. And rotate. Trying to stay coordinated here. And we'll enable autopilot. I enabled FLC, so flight level change as soon as I hit roughly 75 knots. Oh, and another new thing too. I've recently got myself a track IR, which is kind of nice. I don't always keep it enabled, but it has been very, very nice, particularly when doing manual landings. It's so much easier to just look back and see where the runway is. And this I find kind of funny. On a side note, I can lean out the window. I feel like a dog on a car ride with his head out the window and tongue hanging out. It's rather hilarious, actually. Vaccine landing lights off. So yeah, since the last time I used the Cessna 172, well, the last video I was using the steam gauge variant. This time here I have the G1000 variant, and I built up these panels. Most of these are stock, either freeware or payware air manager instruments. The G1000 instruments are stock from Air Manager, although I've replaced the graphics on them. I've done some graphic editing on them to make them look better. The comm panel, or the audio panel, actually is built by a guy from the Microsoft Flight Simulator forum called FL Rob 24. He's the guy who designed a lot of the CJ4 panels that I had in my last video. It works very well for all the communications needs. So I can enable my radios, monitor, transmit, especially helpful for VATSIM, which I've started using. The G1000 panel, like I said, they're pretty much the stock, except I've actually enabled the VNAV button, which has no command because Microsoft Flight Simulator has no VNAV function by default as of yet. The first VNAV to show up in there is both the Working Title CJ4, then the G3000 has a quasi VNAV that's a little bit too manual, so it's not true VNAV, but it does work. And now the G1000 NXi has VNAV built in based on the CJ4, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how well it works for that. The other instruments, like I said, are all pretty much stock Air Manager instruments. Over beside my MFD, the ELT switch does nothing. It's an X-plane instrument. It's just there to look good. The throttle and mixture levers down here, graphics are from the Cessna 172 payware panel. And then this alt static air is actually an instrument I built. It's actually available for download over on the Microsoft Flight Sim forums. I have a whole thread there with all the instruments I've built and or modified, and I'm sharing out there. I'll include a link to that in the description below. So yeah, so we're in the air here. So far, I've really enjoyed what the G1000 NXi is doing. Here, I will put my procedure in right now. We'll do ILS 19, 19er, and we'll go via PenV. I won't bother with a minimum, and I will activate. And now we can see this is all into the flight plan. But if we go over to the MFD, look at the flight plan here, you'll see I have my altitude restrictions in here as well of 2,900 feet. So we'll get to see how well VNAV works. So at MAVOG, I need to be at 2,900 feet. I don't know how well you can see on the MFD here. If you follow over here, you'll see there's a little top of descent marker. So the Autopilot should use VNAV to start descending me once it hits that top of descent. I'll have to arm the VNAV, obviously, but it should actually do it for me. So we'll see how well this works out in practice. So yeah, so looking at the G1000 some more, it looks fabulous. The fonts look great, the PFD especially. Everything just looks absolutely fantastic, nice, sharp, and crisp. The colors are much closer to matching the real G1000 NXi. So display-wise, it's looking very good so far. Now, there are a lot of missing features at the moment that are even in the basic G1000, the unmodded, and it's missing a lot of features that were in the previous versions of the Working Title mod. One thing, for example, it no longer saves a lot of the information. Like you used to be able to save your layout, you know, your map insert, or in this case here, it has the map in the HSI, which I really like. I'm going to leave it on. Things like your PFD options, like displaying wind, your bearing information. All this stuff now you've got to manually enter each flight because they don't have the autosave on that yet. There. Clean this out. There we go. I got my lean. Bring it to cruise RPM. There. About 2450 will be nice. I'll give us a nice speed, get us there in a reasonable time. So yeah, there's a few features that are missing right now in the PFD, but the ones that are missing the most on the MFD, like prior, you used to use the FMS knob, and you'd be able to get rid of the flight plan and go through the multiple pages of the MFD. That's currently not active. Same thing with the map options. There are none at the moment, not for terrain. There's no NextRad. There's no traffic, and that's the part I miss the most in this so far, is the lack of traffic. What else is missing? Oh yeah, and on the multiple pages, the one thing I do miss the most is the ability to switch radios between 8.33 and 25 kilohertz mode. So, I mean, it's not a killer. You can still dial in your frequencies, but at the moment, it's more convenient. There's a lot less turning of the dial when you're in North America on 25 kilohertz. If you're flying around Europe and other parts of the world, 8.33 kilohertz is fine. So, I mean, this isn't a showstopper by any means. What else is lacking at the moment? Oh yeah, things like auto-tuning your frequency when you enter like an ILS approach, for example. It will no longer auto-tune your frequency. It won't switch your CDI to nav1 mode, and it won't set your course bearing on your CDI. So those are all manual for the time being. And we need, which I'll enter right now, 111.3, which is runway 19er in Kingston. Oh, it's already picked it up. Well, it is a pretty short flight, so it's not surprising. So, I will enter VNAV mode. So now you see over on the PFD, up here, we have VPath that's been enabled, and this little strip here has been enabled. This acts much like your glide slope indicator strip. You'll see here half of this little caret sitting here. As we get closer to top of descent on the over on the map side on the MFD, which you can't see at the moment, this will start descending, much like a glide path indicator. And once it hits the center here, I should start going into my descent. It will calculate it based on my speed, and it should have me at it should have me at the 2,900 feet that's dictated here by the time I hit that waypoint Mavog. So just before Penvy, it'll start descending, and I should be able to, I should lose that altitude I need to, what is it, 2,500 feet before I reach Mavog. So we'll see how well VNAV works. So yeah, back to this, our full view here. So the G1000 NXi is coming along really well. Like I say, the features are missing, but this is an early access, so they're fixing bugs. And what I really appreciate about this the most is that they're actually taking care of the navigation and the GPS part of it first, before they're tacking on all these extra additions to it. So they're making sure that their navigation works, VNAV works, you know, that you get proper navigation that is following waypoints correctly, that the base functionality of the G1000 is as it should be. And that's kind of the issue with the stock G1000. It has a bunch of extra stuff, but the basic navigation stuff either is completely lacking or doesn't work right, or doesn't work repeatably, so you never know from one session to the next what's actually going to happen. So I'm hoping that they're getting, well, it does look like they are getting this down quite well so far. Oh yeah, so now we just have to enjoy the flight. We should be at the next waypoint shortly, or at least at our top of descent. I'm quite enjoying this track IR. So now frame rates are actually quite nice because I have popped out windows here. These are costing me about 15 FPS. So right now I'm only doing about 27, 28 FPS. I'm losing a couple as well because I'm recording this. I mean, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recording sources going into OBS at the moment. So that's like taking a little bit of a toll on my overall frame rate as well. Typically when I'm not recording, I can get 32, 33 with popped out instruments. Without the pop outs, I'm usually at 40 plus, usually 45-ish. So they still don't have that quite resolved in the sim yet. Popping out windows robs you of far too many frames. Even if you're not moving them to another monitor, a lot of people will argue and say, well, multi-monitor support's not in the sim yet. And it's like, I don't really consider pop-out windows to be multi-monitor support. It's viewports, although that is likely to be what they're going to implement properly for multi-monitor support, is different viewports. But anyway, that's further down the road. So far, I have to say, Sim Update 5 is probably the least stable version of the sim I've encountered since launch. I don't know what the beta people were like before launch, but for me, this is has been very, very crash happy. Although frames are a lot better now, so this makes it much more feasible for recording. The moving of glass cockpits to a discrete thread has been such a boom for performance. I think that this has been one of the biggest performance killers in previous versions of the sim for me, because I could tell I would fly a plane like the Cessna 152 without any glass cockpit, and I'd be, 40, 45 FPS. I'd load up the most basic plane, like the Cessna 172 with the G1000, or sorry, with the GNS 530 and 430. I wouldn't even pop out the windows, and I'd be down to about 20, 25 FPS. So, and now I'm popping out windows. I'm also running my glass cockpit refresh rate on high, so now I have nice smooth motion in these things, and it's running just fine. Another big boom for me is the terrain LOD. So now we can see my draw distance for terrain stuff like trees is quite a bit farther out than it used to be. World Update 3 is what really killed it for me. Since World Update 3, I hadn't been able to put my terrain LOD past 100, and it would just murder my frame rate past 100. Even the difference between 100 and 105 was like 10 frames per second. Anything 100 and under made no difference, but anything over 100 would just kill me. Now I'm able to run everything on full ultra again. I mean, I still have some pop in, as you saw in the distance here. That everybody's having that at the moment. Hopefully they fix that in the next world update as they've promised. So we're starting to approach our top of descent. Don't want to get too carried away talking about other stuff here and miss that. So soon we should see the caret over here on the PFD start coming down. Oh yeah, one thing I need to do first. I need to actually set my altitude for the target, or else it will not catch. The VNAV won't catch. So I have to set it to at least what you see up here in the purple, the magenta 2900. That's my next altitude restrictions. So I need to have it set to at least that for it to engage and go down to that level. If I didn't do that, it wouldn't go down. Now, in theory, I should be able to go lower than 2900, so I should be able to, and we'll test that. I'll actually put it down to 300 feet, which is the height of the field. We should be at 300 and some odd feet above sea level. But even due to that, it should only go down to 2,900 feet when I actually get to Mavog. So we're almost at top of descent here. And there we go. You can see that carrot is starting to move down. Switch to my PFD for people who can't see it on smaller devices. The carrot is moving down. So far, the theory part of it is working. If it doesn't work, it could also be my fault that I'm not doing something right. This is my understanding of it. And that could be problematic. I am far from being an expert at this. I'm just testing this out for myself right now. Almost there. And there we go. Oh, and you'll notice V path changed to Alt V. Here, I'll turn down my reduced power a little bit here. Maintain my speed, but not over speed. And there we go. We're going down at a nice, comfortable 550, 600 feet per minute. In theory, this should maintain us a 300 or a 3-degree glide slope down from interesting. If I slow down my speed, it's increasing my rate of descent. Yeah, I have to say, this region looks a lot better now that I can have my my terrain LOD on 200. I haven't tried increasing it beyond that in the user option config file. I know you can. A lot of people run it up to around 400. I'm not sure how that would affect my performance. Right now, I'm a little hesitant to do stuff like that with the sim just because it hasn't been very stable for me. This is the crash happiest version I've had to date. There we go, reduce my power a little bit. But yeah, seems to be working out nicely here. We're on the V path. Which is interesting to see that up in the the MFD here rather than seeing like GP or GS, depending on the plane you're flying. Yep. And you notice over on the MFD, it shows bottom of descent right at Mavog, so we should be hitting that altitude restriction of 2,900 feet, which is working exactly the way it should. This is very nice. I mean, if you're playing with the in-game ATC, they don't really follow the charts. They're starting to give you, like, you know, descents and climbs. They never... So if you have a star entered into your flight plan, for example, in-game ATC doesn't really follow it. It's giving you, like, you know, to descend to different altitudes, climb, descent. It's still kind of screwy when it should be, for the most part, following the star, and it doesn't. And that's how I tried it previously, and it wasn't matching up with what ATC. But if you're playing on something like VATSIM, and they're telling you to come in at a particular, following a particular star, then you should be able to use this quite effectively. So, here I am at 2,900 feet, exactly where I should be. Which is perfect. So now I can switch my CDI to localizer 1, arm my approach, and here I have to actually set my course to 189, and I'm on my glide slope. And I should have been adjusting my mixture as I was descending. Too busy talking and pointing out other things, but hey, this is a simulator. In a real plane, that would have been a really bad no-no, but yeah, here we go. I'm pretty pleased with how well this works. Oh, I really like that. If you'll notice, when using the in-HSI map like this, you have your lateral deviation indicator up here rather than being a bar inside, which is interesting. I'm not used to this display like that. I'm usually more used to seeing it like this. So this is actually kind of nice. Oh yeah, we can adjust the zoom of the map just like we would. Right down to 250 feet range to the map, which is very cool. And I go over here. The keen-eyed repeat viewers of this channel will see I'm currently missing my Sim Innovations real knobster over here, and I'm only using the one at the moment. The original knobster I received from Sim Innovations when I ordered mine was defective. There were a lot of missing detents on it that didn't register, so sometimes I would have to click it to turn it 2 to 3 clicks, 2 to 3 detents before it would register one change, and it was doing that on both axes of it. So I contacted Sim Innovations. Ralph got back to me, and after a little chatting back and forth, he sent me another one in the mail like immediately. I had it within a couple of days, so which was really, really awesome. And I received that, and it worked fine out of the box. And I've only had it for maybe a month and a half, and it started wearing out as well, where it was starting to miss detents, and it started deteriorating the more I used it, and more, and even the push button in it, you'd really have to press on it like with unreasonable pressure for it to start working. So I've been chatting back and forth with Ralph about this. I've tested it on my laptop, and because he was suspecting that it was a possibility that was USB, either a cable or USB channels or something. So I tested it through my hubs, through direct connection to my computer, and it was doing the same. So I eventually tested it on my other computer. It was doing the same thing there too. So now I have both of them packed up here in the box. By the way, these are the boxes that the Knobsters come in. So I have them both packed away here. I am going to hit the post office probably tomorrow once I get home from work, and send them back to him, and so he can inspect them to see what's wrong, because 2 of them in a row being sent that were both defective is not something that typically they have happen. So I'm sending them back. He's going to PayPal me the return postage so that he can inspect them himself, and hopefully send me another one so I can be back to having 2 Knobsters. Because really, I would like to have the Sim Innovations one here instead of my homemade one. My homemade one is too high profile. So from my angle here, when I'm looking this way, it actually hides this entire row of buttons on my the autopilot buttons on my PFD. So I would rather have that here and have the low profile Sim Innovations one as my primary Knobster. So I'll report back to how to what comes of this, because yeah, needless to say, oh, I accidentally hit my back course button. Not good, not good. I hit my toga button. It says I missed my approach. Remove. Let's see if I can get it. I don't know how to recover from this. Oh, well, I do know how to recover from it. It's called manually fly your plane. And I can do that. Oh, God, I hate this. What they've done to the trim on these planes now. The trim wheels feel horrible. They've optimized it so much for Xbox buttons that using an actual wheel now emulates a button rather than being as on an encoder axis like it used to be. Coming in a little fast. Oh, I'm missing 1 notch of flaps too. I'm talking too much. Oops. There we go. Welcome to Norman Rogers Airport, folks. Welcome to Kingston. There's a nice little airport we have here. I'll enable my track IR again. Never even turned on my landing lights. Well. Again, would be bad in real life, not so much in the sim. That wasn't really the purpose of today's flight. It was really to... I'm usually a little more of a stickler on details when flying for... But yeah, this is actually a third-party scenery, freely available on flightsim.to. It's a guy who's a former resident of Kingston who built up the airport. He's still using autogen buildings, but he's corrected the runways, the parking spots. He's put the tower at the right place. the buildings size-wise match a lot better what they should do. He's added the chain link fencing around. He's added lighting for the aprons. He's done a really good job of it overall. Right now, there's an issue where ATC control has no idea that runway 07 and 25 even exist. So if you're using the in-game ATC, it will only ever give you 01 and 19er. So it's a bit of an issue with winds sometime, obviously, but I mean, if you're flying on VATSIM, which I've been trying to a bit more as of late, then that's no longer an issue. Oh, here we go. My marshalling dude over here is missing one of his lightsabers. It's one of the issues with Sim Update 5. Oops, hit the brakes a bit too hard there. Never cleaned up my plane, never did anything like that. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad pilot. It's all right, folks. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope that you enjoyed this little showcase of what the Sim Innovations panels can do, and the point of the video, what the G1000 NXi can do with its VNAV. I have to say, I'm pretty pleased with it. I mean, I messed up by hitting the toga button on my way down. Like I said, I don't know how to recover from that other than to manually fly, which is not a problem. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like what you saw, please hit subscribe and like, for more videos, and see you next time. Until then, happy flying.